Hi, I'm Milo. Welcome to WORLDwrite. We're here today to discuss whether 16-year-olds should have the right to vote. It's great to have Fraser Myers with us here to discuss this topic. He's a producer here at WORLDwrite and a writer for the online magazine Spiked. Fraser, I'm 16. I would like to know, why is this talked about so much on the news?
The Welsh Government have basically signalled their intention to allow 16-year-olds to vote at the next local elections. But also more broadly, the Labour Party are campaigning to extend the franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds in national elections.
So why are you against this?
Well, the problem with this current push for voters at 16 is that it's really a cynical attempt at what I call generational gerrymandering. The Labour Party have a huge lead among young people at the moment. For instance, at the last election, they had a 47-point lead among first-time voters. What they seem to have concluded is that they can't win over, the rest of the population. They can't win over adults, and so they're now looking to young people.
So now we are going to hear from some other young people.
Hello Fraser, my name is Sajiba and I'm 17 years old, and I would like to know, do you think that 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds are responsible enough to vote?
I don't see why there's any reason that 16 and 17-year-olds couldn't be responsible. But I think if you look at the way 16 and 17-year-olds are treated at the moment, you have to recognise that, for instance, the Welsh Government and the Labour Party don't think they're responsible. Only a few days after they'd announced that young people would have the vote at local elections, the Welsh Government banned young people from having certain piercings. Not that long ago, the same Welsh Government banned young people from sitting on a sunbed and having a fake tan. The Labour Government themselves raised the age from which you could buy cigarettes from 16 to 18. They also raised the age at which you could buy knives. The same politicians who are saying that youngsters should have the vote, that they're mature enough or responsible enough, at the same time are also saying that they're not responsible enough to do all these actually quite trivial things. This points to a kind of general trend of young people being mollycoddled by adults, and even young people themselves often kind of internalise that. So if you look at young adults, for instance, on university campuses, many of the most political of them are arguing for safe spaces, for no platforming. They themselves are insisting that they are too vulnerable, in a sense, not proper adults, that they can't handle debate. I disagree. I think they probably can handle it. We live in a society that mollycoddles young people, but at the same time, the Labour Party want to hand them the vote.
Hello, Fraser. My name is Wynter. I'm 19 years old. If young person can pay taxes, get married, and go to the army, why no vote?
Tourists pay tax when they come into the country. They pay VAT. And I wouldn't want to stand outside Heathrow registering them to vote in the next election. Marriage, some young people get married, but you have to do it with your parents' consent. And similarly with the army, you can't join the army without your parents' consent. And you also can't be sent off to fight in Afghanistan. You have to be 18. I think it's reasonable that we have a distinction between adults and children. At the moment, that falls at 18. I think it's interesting that there isn't a move to change any of the other markers to adulthood, to reduce them to 16. 16 and 17-year-olds are not encouraged to get married or anything like that. If you're not granted any of the other rights of adulthood, if you're not trusted to have the freedoms that come with adulthood, then that to me suggests that young people are being used. Whether it's the Labour Party or the SNP in Scotland calling for votes at 16, it's the vote that they make an exception for. They're not interested in giving you any other rights or freedoms or responsibilities.
Hello Fraser, I'm Phoebe, I'm 18. Do you think 16-year-olds are easily led?
So it's interesting, this is an argument that often comes up. A lot of Conservatives, particularly in this country, will say that, young people are really easily led because they all like Corbyn or something like that. I mean, in France, actually, you hear the opposite. You hear young people are too easily led because they like Marine Le Pen and the National Front. For me, the issue isn't whether young people are easily persuaded. It's the fact that young people's views seem to be given priority over the views of older people. Young people are constantly told that they're really liberal and forward-thinking, that they're the future, while at the same time older voters are told that they're selfish and bigoted and, it'd be better off if they were dead, and then we could have a more progressive future.
So the youth must mobilise and make their voice heard and say that what is happening to our country now is not happening in their name.
By 2019, the country could be in a receptive mood. 2.5 million over 18s, freshly franchised, mostly Remainers. 1.5 million oldsters, mostly Brexiters, freshly in their graves.
So there is this toxic generational war. I don't think young people are necessarily more easily led one way or another, or that young people necessarily have a fixed view of things. But at the moment, what young people seem to be thinking suits certain parties and certain causes, and so that's why they're jumping on this votes at 16 bandwagon.
Do you think Emily Thornberry is right for comparing the votes at 16 with the suffragettes?
A right that millions of women received 100 years ago this week, the basic right to vote. How many more years do we have to wait until the vote is extended to everyone over 16?
No, absolutely not. And I think it gives a really good illustration of how degraded democracy has become in the eyes of some of these people, in the eyes of the Labour Party and Emily Thornberry in particular. I mean, the suffragettes had to fight for decades for the right to vote, alongside, you know, working class men who didn't have the right to vote. They were organising marches, campaigning, many people sacrificed their lives, they went on hunger strike. And in comparison, I don't think the demand for votes for 16 is actually there among 16 and 17-year-olds. I haven't seen any of them go on hunger strike or anything like that. There is a Votes for 16 campaign. It's run by an NGO called the British Youth Council. And if you go on their website and you look at their history, no mention of a rally, no mention of a march, no mention of a protest. I haven't seen a single 16-year-old with a placard marching on Westminster saying, I want the vote. Actually, this is all driven by older MPs who see an advantage, a partisan advantage in pushing this. It doesn't come from young people.
Hello Fraser, my name is Jodie and I'm 16 years old, and I would like to know, does it matter how informed you are, and does it have anything to do with 16-year-olds voting?
There's a lot of people who have tried to say, oh look, this new generation, they're on the internet all the time, following stuff on social media, don't they just know more than previous generations? And to that, I mean, I've got to say that it doesn't matter really how informed you are. That's not what democracy is about. You don't need a PhD to be able to vote. My point is, you have to ask, are you in a position to be able to take responsibility for your own life and for society, or not?
Hi Fraser, my name is Abdul and I'm 17 years old. And in Scotland, they lowered their voting age to 16 for the 2014 referendum. This turned out to be quite a success because more 16 to 17-year-olds came out to vote than 18 to 24-year-olds. Why would you say this is?
Well, it's funny, you said it was a success, and the danger is that this question of votes to 16 is used as a kind of tool to say this is how we get young people engaged in politics. We get them engaged by handing them the vote. When really, I would want to get young people engaged in politics through inspiring ideas, you know, transformational politics. Every vote that has ever mattered, that has really counted, every group in society that really needed the vote, they had to fight for it. They had to campaign for it. They had to take it off the hands of the state. Whereas this, on the other hand, votes are being handed out like sweets as if they mean nothing. And, you know, I think it's actually quite patronising to young people. I think young people are being taken for a ride here.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. We'd like to know what you think about 16-year-olds getting the vote. Do leave a comment under this video. Thank you.